Hello there, everybody, and welcome to your full moon video for the full moon in Pushya Nakshatra. Now, before some of you start scurrying for the comments going, wait a second, isn't it in Punarvasu Nakshatra? I use what's called a different Ayanamsha and a different set of calculations for fixed star positions. So for all of you astrology geeks who like knowing this type of stuff, like me, there is a video linked just above where you can go and watch it, and that way people don't have to sit through the long, complex explanation. So they say that patience is a virtue, but day by day, those horns may be growing out of the top of your head because, well, even though you're doing your very best to be patient with the situation, which seems to be moving a little more slowly than you like. Okay, it's moving really slow now. Okay. Or at least it feels that way. But by the day, you're becoming more and more frustrated with the situation and where it's ending up. That's natural. You see, this particular full moon is going to happen within a couple of degrees of a retrograde Mars. Think of a volcano that, that tends to build up in terms of pressure before it tends to erupt. Now, I'm not saying you're going to erupt, but what I am saying is those tensions can be piling pretty high within you. So keep that in mind. It likely feels more frustrating to you at this particular moment in time than it may do at any other moment in time. Pusha Nakshatra, which is quite often known for its reputation to be a very nourishing nakshatra, it also deals with the concept of limitations because Pusha Nakshatra gives us the recognition that in order to nourish one thing, sometimes we have to make sacrifices on another level. And so this particular full moon energy in one area of your life or another likely has you questioning the level of sacrifice that you're making. And if you want to know a little bit more about what area of your life that might be or anything else, I do offer several different levels of astrological service. You can find those through my services page linked just above. So you're frustrated, you're tired, you're exhausted, you feel like you went into this situation with full intent to be a warrior for the cause that you're dealing with. But every warrior occasionally wants to retire to the garden and not have to deal with all the stress and the tension and all of those things. Adding insult to injury with this situation, so that injury being you and your frustrations, is the fact that inside of you, you know that some perhaps very difficult conversations need to be had, and you feel like you need to be forthright with your feelings, which I highly recommend. But at the same time, honesty, quite often spoken, even with the purest of intentions, gets misconstrued when it moves from your mind to the mind of another person. Because you see, we all see things in a very different way. There's the personal truth that we're experiencing and our honest expression in association with that. And then there's absolute truth, which is something that's completely different. So every person has their own version of that personal truth. So they're always going to interpret the words coming from another individual from that particular perspective. So you feel like these conversations need to be had. Maybe you're a bit concerned about, whether it's worth your time or energy to do so because you feel that every time you try to have these conversations, something always gets in the way of your capacity to do so. Well, don't over explain yourself, right? We have a tendency to do that sometimes when things are confusing, and then we go into the scenario of over explaining and confuse the situation even more. Trust that you just need to say what needs to be said. Maybe clarify things once, twice, maybe, but just leave it at that. Because next thing that can happen is frustration and tensions can come into the discussion, and before you know it, things spoken with the clearest and purest of intent in terms of bringing a level of compromise suddenly get blown out of proportion. So take your time in your communications, but at the same time, don't over explain things at this particular point. Recognize you're just feeling tired, right? Recognize you've been dealing with this for a long time. Give yourself maybe a private and congratulatory pat on the back. Nourish yourself for the moment for what you've done for the situation, but recognize that, number one, another person may not want to give you that recognition or acknowledgement, and you may not feel okay with that, but give yourself the acknowledgement for it. And equally at the same time, recognize that this is the right thing to do. And so sometimes doing, well, I wouldn't say sometimes, all the time, doing the right thing is its own reward, right? But we're human. We like to have recognition. We'd like to have acknowledgement. We like to, be honored for the things that we do, especially those of us who are a little more action centered, especially those of you who may have prominent Mars in your chart. We like to be respected for our actions. Mars is a masculine planet, and masculine planets like to be respected for their ideas and equally like to be respected for their actions. And so this full moon is forming a conjunction with Mars, and it's going to bring those tensions to the surface. So fast progress with the situation that you're dealing with may be a desire that you have, but remember inwardly that patience is a virtue. Acknowledge your own feelings of impatience that you may have. Remember the reason that you're doing this and making these sacrifices for the first place, and try to be a little more relaxed even though those tensions may be brewing, right? Let them move. Go for a walk. Get some, if you do martial arts, do some martial arts. Do other things to help those tensions, get moving and expressed with this particular full moon cycle. Things are moving. It's just your own inner frustration that's making it seem like things are halted to a complete stall. So be patient, acknowledge your impatience, because it's always important to acknowledge your feelings. Remember the reason why you're doing this first and foremost. That's my advice to you for this particular full moon cycle. And if you'd like to dive into your own personal horoscope to an even deeper level, there's presently a discount offered on my 60-minute consultations and equally the 2025 year ahead consultations, which are only going to be available for a few more days, but you can schedule one of those with me if you'd like at the link that you'll see above. That's going to do it for this look at the full moon in Pushya Nakshatra, taking place on the 13th of January 2025. Until next time, please do take the very best care of yourself. Bye now.